You're listening to Captain John Doe, real aviation stories told anonymously. Let's get into it.
Welcome back, Captain John Doers and Jane Doers out there.
Hello, hello, hello.
I am your host, Kevin, assisted by my lovely wife,
Mindy, hi.
So big news, guys. After all this time, I've decided I'm going to go back and be a controller. I'm just kidding. It's April Fools. No.
Happy April Fools if you're listening on launch day.
Actually, I just hit my 1,500 hours, so the opposite is happening. We are continuing the path forward to being a professional pilot.
So exciting. That's a huge milestone. Do you feel like a big weight off?
I'm not going to lie, like it was like a little bit of a tear kind of came down because it just was so much work. You know, part of the thing I wanted to talk about today is like being a CFI. It's such a unique position where you're in a role that you weren't really trained to be. You're a teacher, but you're also a pilot, you're a mentor, you're everything. So yeah, it feels really good to get to that magic number.
Yeah, I'm sure you're excited to get on to the next thing. I know you love teaching, but once you, like when you have your eyes on a goal, it's exciting to get to that next thing and it's hard to stop thinking about it, right?
Correct. I mean, this has been the goal since we moved out here. I mean, I'm averaging 100 plus hours a month, which is crazy. And it happened. I remember when we moved here, we were looking at February, March for the date and, you know, doing the math like that was kind of seemed unattainable, but it happened. You know, and that's my biggest advice for future CFIs out there. Like when you are trying to determine a school to go teach at, and I know the hiring market's different, so take this with a grain of salt. Availability to fly and students to teach is the most important thing above everything else. You know, I have work every single day of the week if I choose it. There's nothing better than that.
Right. And like you said, the hiring pool is very difficult. From CFIs and entry-level jobs the whole way up through professional airline pilots and charter pilots. The hiring is slimmer than we saw a couple years ago when it was just anyone with a pulse got a job.
So when I say this, like I'm not saying like go be picky on the school, but like if you do get fortunate and have the option to choose, you know, it's not always about the money. It's more about what that school is producing. How many students are there? Is there a wait list? Can you fly? Can you get in the air? And do you have a ownership or a company that, you know, champions you guys to get your time? You know, because that's one thing that I love about my ownership and my bosses is they love to hear that I got my 1,500 hours and they're not going to get rid of me like some schools.
Yeah. You don't have to
crazy.
keep it a secret.
It doesn't have to be a secret.
No, that's really exciting. Congratulations on your 1,500 hours. I know myself and a lot of our listeners and friends and family have been rooting for you, so it's really exciting to hit that major milestone. Now you are officially in the queue of being available to be a professional pilot. So hopefully we have some sort of update for you guys soon. Nothing to share yet, but hopefully something soon.
What we do have to share is something not so positive happening in the general aviation world. If you guys follow Mindy and I, you know, Mindy's very vocal about landing fees, and Falcon Field, the Arizona Falcon Field, just announced that they are going to be adding some pretty ludicrous fees to every single plane that touches that pavement.
Right. So just for context for anyone listening, so when you fly a plane in the US to an airport, you're generally not paying a landing fee. You do pay FBO facility fees and ramp fees because there's a company that, quote, owns the ramp space that you may be parking at, and they impose fees. Now airports are starting to impose their own fees, meaning even if you don't park there, overnight there, use any facilities. You can just be doing a landing because you're practicing flying or just out and about on a joy flight. Now they are imposing that anytime your wheels touch the ground, you have a landing fee. That's really, really, really bad for general aviation to stack on even more fees than we already have. And only a couple of airports have it so far. A lot of them are using a company called Vector, and Vector is tracking ADSB to charge aircraft owners landing fees at the airports who are implementing it. Why is this bad? Well, there's a bunch of reasons. One of the biggest reasons is ADSB is being abused.
Yeah, I mean, ADSB was mandated back in 2020 by the FAA. So every single airplane that has an electrical system, I know that's crazy for some of you guys out there, and some planes don't have electrical, are required now to have basically a way you can be tracked. It's called ADSB. And it was for safety. I love ADSB. When I'm flying through busy airspaces, you have great situational awareness of all the airplanes around you. But now this company is...
Well, hold on. The FAA, when they said they were imposing this equipment and that it was required, said that it would not be used for stuff like this, that it was
You're right.
only for safety. Like, that's a key point here.
That's
they said
true.
it would not be used for tracking in this way.
You're right. It's only supposed to be used for tracking not for tracking, for safety reasons. What's happening is the local city council members are being approached by this company who's saying you can, exponentially increase your revenue by just charging people for being in your airspace or touching the pavement, which is not what it's for. So
no, it's not. And so that's BS and super frustrating that they're using ADSB to bill, which that wasn't the intention of the equipment. And so that's really frustrating. But also just the landing fees in general, that's something that the US was really good about to not have. And now several airports have implemented it. And I wasn't able to have time to look up exactly the impacts. But once an airport has landing fees imposed, all the pilots talk about it and say, avoid this airport at all costs. And people only land there if they have to. For example, Kissimmee outside of Orlando, Florida, I know when they announced that they had landing fees implementing that, everyone was like boycotting the airport and still is. I am positive that their operations went down significantly.
And who's that harming? That's the thing. Like, that's who these
local businesses.
The businesses. Like, it's crazy to me when these 5 council men and women are sitting down thinking that they're going to solve a problem that doesn't exist, because most airports are self-sufficient because everyone who's operating a business there is paying a land lease, most likely. Every single gallon of gas you're buying is going back into the system. And the federal government provides stipends to every single public use airport that chooses to buy into that. That's where this issue is. So I'll give you a real example. Mindy and I went to Torrance and we parked on the city-owned ramp, and they charged us a landing fee, which is completely appropriate.
No, like a parking fee.
A parking fee. Yeah.
Or a ramp fee.
Sorry, a parking fee.
Don't say landing
Yeah,
fee.
parking fee. So, like, I want that to be clear. Like, we expect that. I think that's a reasonable thing. We're using their facilities for the night. And then we got hit with a bill from Vector on top of it for a landing fee. And it made...
Torrance, it was $9, by the way, for one landing, $9. So imagine doing pattern work or something.
No, it made no sense to me because the city of Torrance charged us a parking fee, and then the city of Torrance charged us a landing fee on top of it. Like, it's that nickel and diming that causes this cascade effect. And you said something really funny to me the other day about like some of your messages you're getting from UK pilots, right?
Yeah, but first I want to talk about how much Falcon was charging.
Okay.
Because then that will make sense. You got ahead of me.
Sorry.
So they posted the landing fees at Falcon Field, Arizona, FFZ, effective May 1st, 2026. for aircraft that land there that are under or equal to 6,000 pounds max landing weight, $24.35 per landing.
Okay, real quick.
That's the
For
highest I've ever seen.
that's insane. For everybody out there wondering what a 6,000-pound airplane and under is. First of all, that encompasses a lot, but most airplanes that are under
Those are piston planes.
under 4,000 pounds are typically students training. You know, that's the majority of people flying. Like, I know that you could have differing opinions of people owning their personal aircraft, but generally speaking, most small airplanes are being flown by student pilots, literally going to school, paying to become a pilot, which is a labor position. It's a blue collar job. And most of the city councilmen and women and the residents are blaming this on wealthy individuals. This is not the same. We talked about Starlink a couple episodes back. This is not the same. This is impacting.
Think about
people.
Students. They're training for their career. This is schooling, affecting schooling. People in essentially a college, a trade school, and then now their fees to learn have just gone up so much. So that was below 6,000 pounds, $24.35 per landing. Above 6,000 pounds max landing weight, $4.10 per 1,000 pounds. So what does that mean? A Pilatus PC-12 is roughly 10,000 pounds max landing weight. So that would be roughly $40 per landing on a PC-12.
So for reference, I've done about 1,200 landings this past year as instructing, and that's with paying students. So that would be close to $30,000 additional that
of just your students,
of just my students that would have to pay money. And Falcon Field also, by the way, is not an airport where private jets go. That airport is.
I didn't see any when we were there.
That airport is.
We were just there the other day.
That is a student pilot mecca. It is one of the busiest meccas in the world.
I didn't even say the worst part. That was for transient aircraft. That was visitors. Here's the fees for the based aircraft. So why is this important? Most airports with landing fees don't charge the tenants, the people that are permanently based there, or they give them like a really big break on it. Someone messaged me saying that they get like 15 or 20 free landings on this specific plan before these fees come into place. I did not see that, but I'm sure it's true if that person said it. But based aircraft under 6,000 pounds, $20.35 per landing. So just to land at your home airport where you're paying rent and fuel and all these other fees, you're also now going to pay about $20 per landing just for being based there.
It's insane.
And that's not much different from the transient aircraft of $24. They only got a $4 break.
I've never seen that. That's the difference right there.
And then based aircraft above 6,000 pounds, $3.40 per 1,000 pounds. They also have, I just thought this was funny, based rotorcraft, drones, and eVTOL, $12.60 per landing. And then transient rotorcraft, drones, and eVTOL, $17.60 per landing.
I think a big argument that I was seeing online too is like all the medevacs don't get exclusion from this. All the police helicopters are not being excluded at this time because these city council people didn't even think about this. They all voted unanimously, boom, point blank, let's do it.
So stupid.
And it's crazy too, because I was reading a local news article on Facebook and it had like 2,000 comments. And I was very shocked at the surprising, like overwhelming disagreements in it too. Of like the local community saying like this airport feeds our economy because it brings in so many students that spend money in that little district.
Normally the general public doesn't see it that way.
I'm just like, who are they listening to?
So back to your comment about what I said. I posted this on Instagram, the landing fees, just threw it out there saying, yeah, if I flew my 182 and I would owe $24. I got a lot of comments or messages from European people, and they were all like, I don't know if it was intentional to sound a little snarky, but they're like, "Oh, we'll come to Europe, and these fees don't look like a lot. You know, we have our Europe prices are so expensive, blah blah blah." And to that I say, our European listeners, I love you guys so much. So don't take offense to this, and I know you know this already. We don't want to become you. Our general aviation scene, we don't want to become you. Look at what those fees did to your general aviation community. It's like hardly existent. So yeah, we don't want to become you. I am fully aware at how expensive and inaccessible it is to fly GA in Europe. And that's exactly my point, is we don't, that's why I'm bringing awareness to it, and hopefully people can fight it against it happening at their home airport, because we don't want to become Europe on general aviation. The US is the mecca of GA. People fly in from all over the world to fly general aviation and experience our airspace because it is so free and amazing.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Ooh, it's get us hot. We keep going on this for all day, but either way, whenever you guys see stuff like this, like normally Mindy and I don't speak up too much, but like this is super important because our entire livelihood and our hobbies and everything revolves around general aviation. And this is impacting people who don't have the means to own their own airplane. And that's a real problem.
Yeah,
That's
like
a
you
real
said,
problem.
I mean, for student pilots, just trying to learn to fly to get a job, so bad. And for all the businesses, for the maintenance shops, no one's gonna want to go and
No.
land there and pay landing fees to go to your maintenance shop, or
The
to just,
restaurants on the field.
or not on the field, to pop in to go experience the town. Like, yeah, there's a lot of impact there. And the more airports that get on board with it, it's just such a slippery slope. So hopefully if it's starting to happen at your home airport, you can attend the city council meetings and be sure to help shut that down.
Well, as always, head over to our website, CaptainJohnDoe.com. Please submit your anonymous story to the show. Maybe it's a landing fee debacle that you guys had. Let's talk about vectors happening. It is not just at a couple airports anymore. Share your stories on how you're handling it. Everything is anonymous. We don't say your name. You can submit any aviation story, anything. Ask us for advice as well. We love that subject. We don't have one of those today.
Yeah, because we had some really good stories instead.
Yeah.
I picked out some longer stories today.
Yeah. Follow us on social media. Mindy puts out stuff all the time. It's great. Make sure you subscribe. Leave a review. That is what helps us out the most. As always, I'm going to read 2 of them today. Ooh.
Let's hear them.
Aviation nerd, just like all of us. 5 stars only, the best aviation podcast. I love the pod. I listen to it everywhere I go, and it's truly entertaining. Although the podcast is only meant for entertainment, I also find it very educational. I look forward to every Wednesday to listen to the newest episode.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks, aviation nerd.
Yeah, we sneak in a little bit of education. Hopefully you don't even know it's happening.
Oh. Benny Reyes said, another side of Mindy and Kevin, 5 stars only. Love the show. Kevin's story in episode 2 and love the appreciation for Schmindy with the career change support. It was awesome. The stories are great and the analysis is even better.
Hey.
Listen, we cannot ever let that go. Mindy's support is incredible. Like, truly incredible. I can't tell her enough. And I love that you guys are getting to see what kind of person she is, because I see it every day. But what you hear and what you see online is truly my wife. There's nothing different about her.
Thank you. And by the way, Benny Reyes was one of our merch winners in the past. So speaking of merch, we are doing a monthly merch giveaway all year long in 2026. One winner is selected on the 4th Wednesday of each month. So the next episode that we will be doing a merch drawing is episode number 40. You can enter for free by following us on Instagram, engage with our monthly giveaway post. You can also leave us a podcast review. Send us a DM after you complete it, and that's a whole extra entry. If you click on our show name on Apple Podcasts, scroll to the bottom, you can add your rating. open to U.S. residents 18 and older. Full rules are linked on our Instagram bio and on our website, CaptainJohnDoe.com. So be sure to get in the queue for the merch drawing. And actually, tomorrow we're sending out our March winner, his box. It comes with a Captain John Doe bag and a t-shirt and some stickers and a note, and it comes in a nice little package. So thank you guys for entering to our merch giveaway. We love doing it.
One more thing before we get into the story. I know we'll talk about this more probably on next week's episode, but Sun and Fun's coming up, and Mindy and I will be there. So make sure you guys try to find us. And like I said, we'll bring it up again next episode, but Sun and Fun starts, I believe, April 13th. So we look forward to seeing everybody there.
Great point. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
That's like right on our heels.
We need to say that.
Oh my gosh, guys, send in some Sun and Fun stories. You know, flying into air shows and stuff is always crazy, but even like the things that happen at Sun and Fun, and Sun and Fun's coming back.
It's back, baby.
It really is. Sun and Fun kind of fell off for a little while. I don't really know how or why, but the momentum that they had, I feel like as a consumer and an attendee was really down for a while. But over the last 2 years, I've noticed that they've put in so much effort to Sun and Fun. So if you went 5 or 6 years ago and you were not impressed, I highly encourage you to try it again, because in fact, they hired a lot of people from EAA Oshkosh, and some of the best that plan air shows are now working at Sun and Fun, and they're bringing a lot of that Oshkosh kind of vibe to Sun and Fun. It's really impressive, and they're doing a lot for the people who fly in and who camp, and they have a lot of amazing amenities now, and they're doing concerts now every year with big names like country music artists and stuff. And they have the Thunderbirds or the Blue Angels every year, which that's different than Oshkosh. So they've got a lot going on. I really encourage you guys to check it out if you haven't been there in a while. What's different from Oshkosh is the size, right?
Yeah.
It's much smaller. But I kind of like that, especially from my business perspective, because I feel like I can actually get a lot of meetings and connections done. At Oshkosh, it's so big and overwhelming that it's hard to grab 5 minutes with someone. But at Sun and Fun, it's way more casual and calm and peaceful and smaller. That if you want to meet with someone and you have like a business agenda, it's so much easier to get time with people. But then on the other hand, as an attendee, Oshkosh, you need to be there all week and you still won't see everything and you're go, 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 go. Sun and Fun, you can see everything in 2 days and feel really good about your trip. So you don't have to take a whole week off of work, which I think is actually an advantage because, you know, we all take off our whole July to go to Oshkosh.
I think that's why Sun and Fun is almost better at times because, like you said, Oshkosh, you are there the whole week. Sun and Fun,
commitment.
You're pretty much Tuesday to Thursday. After that, you're good.
Yeah. So if you guys have not been to Sun and Fun and you want to go or you're thinking about going, it's so much more accessible than Oshkosh. It's easy to get to. You can fly into Orlando or Tampa. And Lakeland, where Sun and Fun is kind of in between Orlando and Tampa, Florida. So you have lots of airline flight availability versus Oshkosh, just flying into like Appleton. And there's a ton of hotels around. Like you can plan a last minute trip to Sun and Fun. Unlike Oshkosh that you had to plan 6 months in advance to be able to have accommodations. Sun and Fun is so much more accessible, and you can literally come for 1 or 2 nights and feel like you got a lot out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100% agree. I mean, a lot of people stay in Tampa because it's that close.
Yeah.
You know, so last minute trips to Sun and Fun, we still haven't booked our tickets. So.
We'll bring Captain John Doe stickers and stuff, and we'll have them in our bags. So if you guys see us there, track us down, stop us, say hello, and we will bring some Captain John Doe merch with us.
All right, let's get into it. So my first story, the title is Student Pilot Spook. It's not spooky season, guy. All right. I'm currently a student pilot waiting for my check ride. Hopefully you've got it by now. My Piper Cherokee is in maintenance and should be up and running in the next couple of weeks, and I cannot wait to start my adventure of learning and working on my next rating. I have so many stories I could contribute as my husband and I have been to hell and back and his P Baron, and I have some crazy flights when I started out in the Cessna 150. My best spook story to date is below, and I'd like to add a caveat. This story is about learning to be a pilot and some of the untold things we go through during the initial journey. I consider myself a baby pilot. I like that attitude. Anyways, here it goes. I sold in a Cessna 150 and spent several weeks training while I waited for my new panel to be complete in my Cherokee PA-28 140. My husband and I have his and her planes. We love you. He flies a Beechcraft P-58 Baron, and I fly a Piper Cherokee 140. And there it was, completed with an autopilot, 2 radios, and a G5 panel. It was beautiful. Exhausting at first to look at the G5 and not my airspeed or attitude gauge. It took me 3 times with my instructor to figure out how to land and what he likes to call the slot. I call it landing on the numbers, but he's a retired Delta captain, and let's just say save his precious stories for another day. But I did it on July 4th, 2025. He said, I'm getting out of Cherokee. Come find me inside the FBO after 3 times around the pattern. And there I was, spending the summer flying the Cherokee by myself all the time from the Class D airport, where I kept it to a local 25 nautical mile away municipal airport, non-towered airport. Practicing my maneuvers and takeoffs and landings over and over, and that thing getting ready to take my first solo cross country. My instructor flew a pre-cross country with me and then said, it's time for you to plan a flight and get out there. So I planned a flight to a non-towered airport from my Class D home airport. There were several threats along the way. Lots of water to cross, staying out of the Seattle Bravo airspace, flying in the summer heat, and then landing at an airport without a VASI and potential skydivers. I like to call them meat missiles. I was determined, watched the weather for a mellow summer day, and checked the NOTAMs like crazy several times before even getting to the airport. I was so ready. I got to the airport, which was a 50-minute drive in the car. It was a perfect amount of time to really get nervous and overthink your attitudes. How to request flight following with the Seattle Center, and oh my God, what if they were dropping skydivers off the north end of the airport when I enter the pattern? Nonetheless, I pulled the Cherokee out of the hangar and did a second visual pre-flight in the sun to make sure I didn't miss anything in the shaded hangar. Even though I had sweat running down my back in the sun at this point. Calculated my fuel 3 times, checked my oil twice, everything was good, and then I saw my husband roll up to the hangar. What the hell is he doing here? He's a 2,000-hour pilot and is going to make me nervous and second-guess myself. Damn it. I told him I would call after I picked up the ATIS so he could follow me on FlightAware. Now he's going to ask me 1,000 questions before I leave. He sauntered up the plane. I don't know what that word means. Sauntered.
Up to the plane.
Saw shade up to the plane.
Sauntered up to the plane.
I don't know what that word means.
Came up to the plane. Just say he came
up to the plane and gave me a hug and a kiss and told me how excited and incredibly proud he was of me. And how he wanted to see me off as I took out of Payne Field. I went to the bathroom and collected myself. Looked up at the beautiful blue sky, and it was I looked up at the beautiful blue sky August day and smiled at how scared I was going to be, but how great it was going to feel when I got back and pulled the plane into the hangar, knowing I was on my way to getting my private pilot's license and I had accomplished my first solo cross country. Not to mention, I have an 8-year-old daughter, and she was so excited to start flying, just the 2 of us, and had plans to learn to fly as she got older. My husband continued to do his own pre-flight walk around in my Cherokee, which annoyed me, but I let him have his moment. He said, everything looks good. Fuel, oil, lights. Did you check the left cowling? Why would I check the left cowling? I said. Everything is on the right, and I was so used to the Cessna 150 with just one cowling door to open up and look over the engine. Then he said, hey, there are 2 to 3 tiny red fibers on the left cowling door. Did you look? No. They were so small I didn't worry and continued to pack my water, sunglasses, flight plan, and any extra stuff I thought I might need for the flight. As he opened the left cowling door and started to root around, I heard him say, oh my God. What did I say? What? I said, I was getting ready to depart and I really don't want to hear, oh my God. He instantly grabbed his phone and tried to call our local mechanic, But before he did, he told me that the two oil hoses and fuel hose were accidentally routed too close to the exhaust pipe. In the last couple of weeks, they had completely burned holes all the way through all three lines. I was minutes away from flying with an engine fire or fuel loss. I would not have made it 50 miles on my first cross country. We both put the plane in the hangar and took a deep breath. My mechanic was on the way in his car and almost in tears, as he had spent the summer putting my Cherokee panel together and playing with my daughter whenever she would visit the airport. I was in shock and didn't know how to feel about flying, especially being a mom. I went home and went for a long run and cried for an hour about what my outcome would have been if my husband had not shown up and been his meticulous self that day. Ultimately, my dream at 23 was to become a pilot, and at 44, I was finally embarking on this beautiful journey. I love flying, my husband loved flying, and after several tears, I decided I will never get in a plane again without checking every part of the engine. To this day, I check every hose, pipe, cable, screw. The list goes on. I went on to finish all my cross countries over the summer, and by the time this makes it to the confidential stories of being a pilot, I'll be flying around with my daughter. I think being spooked that day is what made me a better aviator, gave me grit, courage, and taught me to get back on the horse.
I love this Captain Jane Doe. This was a great story.
I honestly, you should have read that.
This was a really great story. Okay, there's a lot of twists and turns here, so I'm just kind of scrolling back up to the top. One, I understand the pressure and annoyance that she felt when her husband showed up.
Yeah, we understand.
Right?
There's a lot of similarities here on my training with you. Not in a negative way,
No.
right? But
No,
like the lack of.
Well, you could tell like that how much she loves her husband and how thankful she is that he did showed up even after she was annoyed. But it's like when you're trying to get the confidence to do something and your partner who's also a pilot, this is a very, very niche issue. Your partner who's also a pilot who's way more experienced shows up and kind of takes the wind out from under your sails unintentionally. Like he only had good intentions and thank God he showed up. But her initial feeling of like, oh, like why'd you have to come and ruin this for me? I get that.
I will say this, and Mindy and I have had this conversation, and because of having this conversation, we were able to move on. But like for a long time, I didn't know if I was any good or not. And that's not because of what I was showing in the airplane, but every time I flew, I had a professional type-rated pilot sitting in my right seat. So I relate so much with you, Captain Jane Doe, and understanding if Mindy were to walk up while I was about to solo, I would have that pit in my stomach. Like, here we go. I'm going to miss something. You did a fantastic job, by the way, when it came to stuff like that. But in this story, it unfortunately was a saving grace moment, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I like him checking the airplane prior to you going. It seems like it saved you a pretty substantial issue.
Hopefully those issues would have been found even pre-takeoff, but it's the what could have been, and I understand the emotions that she had afterwards of like that this wouldn't feel good, right?
No.
Like this is a feel good story because this happened the way it should have. Something was found on pre-flight, but as a student and it's something that you didn't find yourself, and then you have the oh my god, what if I didn't find it? What if he didn't show up? And what if I didn't find it myself and I would have tried to go, and what if something would have happened to me and my daughter? It's like all the weight of the world comes down on you in these moments. And I am so happy to read that she continued on because this is a major quitting moment for a lot of people.
100%.
Especially a mom or a parent of a young child who, feels a lot of pressure to be very risk adverse and be like, whoa, what am I doing? Like,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, I mean, 100%. I think your ending, sentence there of how you pre-flight now, which I'm sure you pre-flighted before, great, but now it's like, I'm not going to even let a singular screw evade me.
You know, that's the unfortunate thing about aviation is that you only learn things by exact moments like this. These scenarios define you and define the type of aviator that you are. And you don't know until you know. And you don't know what you don't know.
You
And
don't know what you
you
don't
don't
know.
learn until these things happen to you. And inevitably, anyone that wants to be a professional pilot is going to get scared a few times. And hopefully, it ends exactly like this story where nothing bad happened. But now, this particular issue will never get by this
No, if
aviator.
anything, I feel like you, Captain Jane Doe, have way more confidence than ever because you had something scare you. You got back on the horse. You didn't let it deter you, but you learned from that. And now you're so much more risk adverse than you ever thought you were even before.
Yeah, your experiences that you have and the experiences that you actually take to heart that other people had are the tools in your tool bag. Like, for sure. And so I remember with the first plane we had, the Cubcopter, we got home from maintenance once. I flew it home. And before our next flight, we were pre-flighting and one of our tubes was disconnected. Do you remember that? I don't remember what tube that was.
Yeah, I do. I think it was
One of the
air.
orange.
Yeah, one of the air
The
tubes, intake tubes. Yeah.
Was just laying in the bottom of the cowling. And that gave me a pit in my stomach, like, oh my God. Like, I did pre-flight before I left. I do the same pre-flight every time. Did I miss it? Or did it shake off in flight? And now we're just finding it before the next flight? That's so scary. So now, even in the 182 that we have, I literally reach my hand in and give a gentle tug on all the hoses and tubings to make sure that they're not just about to fall off, that they're tightened correctly. And that's followed me to our next plane and every other plane I fly. Because of that one little tiny experience, it's another tool in my tool bag of something that happened to us or something that happened to someone that we take to heart. And now it's something that's religious. It becomes your religion.
How cool is it that I got to learn from you?
I don't know.
Like, I mean, this is why when we do this podcast, we never think it's educational, but then you just start talking and you have so much knowledge and wealth of knowledge that you shared to me. And, you know, I think whether you want to or not, you're doing it to everyone listening as well.
Yeah. And what I keep saying of the experiences you take to heart from others is you're going to interact with other pilots or maybe even just listening to this podcast, for example, and you're going to hear stories of, oh, this happened to me. And was that story impactful enough for it to be a tool in your tool bag? Because at Textron, I had so many great teachers and they taught me, oh, always be aware of this. This is a common thing on this type of airplane. And I would remember those things. I would take them to heart. Like, sometimes people hear stories and they don't really impact them, but it's what you choose to put in your tool bag. Like,
100%.
for example, I remember being taught a long time ago when you're checking the elevator on the tail of a Cessna 182, for example. Someone taught me a long time ago, like normally you check them individually, right? As you walk around the pre-flight. But there's one extra step. You stand right behind the rudder and make sure that they don't maneuver separately from each other, like that it's completely in unison. And then there's not wiggle in between them. So you kind of move your hands in opposite directions while holding both elevators, because that could be something wrong. And then like peeking into the rudder, there's a special nut on some of them. It's just like all these things people teach you that you got to keep in the tool bag. And then things that happen to you, you share to others, just like this story. And now hopefully everyone who is listening is now going to take extra attention to their hoses. And they're going to be like, wow, that happened to that girl. I listened to that on the podcast. I should really check that more closely next time. It's all about sharing.
Yeah. Well, Captain Jane Doe, please write back in and let us know how the check ride went, because this, obviously we're getting your story a little bit delayed. So we want to know how it's going and if you took your first flight with your daughter.
Yeah. Message me. I want to know. Congratulations on keeping to go, though, because I can understand that spook can really spook people away. So congratulations on being brave.
All right, Schmin, what you got for us?
Next story. All right. I was on one of my first cross-country solos as a student pilot, last month actually, and was headed up to a towered airport for my 3 takeoff and landings, and then after to a very busy but untired airport, and then home. It was a sunny, dry, clear day, per usual in Arizona. Anyway, I did my 3 takeoffs and landings without much incident other than my normal porpoise landings. Some thrill-seeking groundhogs crossing a very busy and active taxiway, and extending downwind into bye-bye land. Everything worked out great. Then I told Tower I was departing to the south for my last stop of the day before going home. I exited the Delta, made all my radio calls, switched frequencies, and started my descent. Nothing too hard. Until I came within about 8 miles of the untowered airport that was my target. Suddenly, it was like I was sharing the skies with a bunch of blind, directionally challenged, old yet somehow still giving kindergarten vibes crazy dudes. There were calls for downwinds that were meant to be base, a twin-engine jet doing missed approaches, and some guy doing touch-and-goes, a helicopter, and pretty much anything you don't want to encounter on your first long solo cross-country. I made my call that I'd be crossing over midfield for the runway in use, and then making a full-stop landing. As I was in the downwind leg, 2 airplanes made a call that they were on a 5-mile final for the opposite side of the runway. I just continued my downwind, base, and lined up for final. Now, this airport has a large set of mountains on one end and a valley between other mountains on the other, so while I was keeping busy trying to focus on traffic and my landing configuration, I was also trying to not become the Southwest version of aviation Mount Rushmore by putting my face, as well as my airplane and the rest of me, into the side of a mountain. Suddenly, I heard a Cirrus make a call for the opposite runway that they were cutting in front of the twin-engine jet I mentioned earlier that was on final. I'm thinking, hold up, I'm on final. At this point, I'm feet away from landing. So I bring it down as gently as I can and start slowing down to the taxi off the runway. Suddenly, I look up and I see landing lights, like way too close. Seriously, at the approach end of the opposite runway and a radio call accompanying them. Cessna on the runway, expedite, hurry up and get off. Bro, trust me, I'm trying. I don't want any part of a Cirrus, and certainly not to be smashed by one. As quickly as possible, I exit the runway and the Cirrus lands. As I'm taxiing back to the runway for takeoff, the CTAF is blowing up with angry pilots saying things like, "Did anyone get that guy's tail number? Who cuts in front of a jet? I think he's going to the ramp. Just wait, we'll get him there." At this point, I'm so ready to be back home, so I just roll up to the runway, wait my turn, do my takeoff. I'm so happy to be done with this place. I'm so happy to be done with this place. I make a radio call. Turning right crosswind off of runway 21. Then I realize I said right, not left, and I make an amending radio call. Just when you think the story is over, I look down and to my left, not even kidding, a Piper Cherokee zooms right under me, maybe 300 feet below. No radio call, opposite direction of my direction, and going relatively fast. After everything that happened, it kind of put the icing on the cake. An hour and a half later, I walk into my home airport, set my flight bag on the table, looked at my instructor in the face, and said, "I am never going back to that airport again by myself." He laughed and he asked for an explanation. After hearing the story, he let me chill for a bit while we finished up my private pilot application. So, while one of the most exciting days of my student pilot career, finishing my required hours, it was also a learning lesson in hazardous attitudes, being alert and always staying on your toes, and maintaining good aviation safety skills. 1000% out of 10 would not recommend, but I'm super, super thankful for the lesson it taught me and for the skills my instructor trained me to keep me safe.
I was literally about to say, before you said that last line, your instructor taught you really well.
Yeah.
Because, oh my God, that sounds pretty terrible, even for a licensed certificated pilot. I mean, uncontrolled airports we know are the Wild West out here, but it's still not okay that people are doing things like that. Like I will be pretty vocal on the radio if somebody is doing something dangerous. Like at our local uncontrolled airport, I don't care if they land opposite direction as long as everything makes sense and we're talking with each other. But clearly, whoever was in the Cirrus chose not to. Whoever was in the Cherokee chose not to. Crazy. Great freaking job on your solo cross country.
Yeah, really great job. To your point, that's a lot for a student pilot to do, and goes to show how great your training has been. And what's funny to me is they mentioned that they're in Arizona, and this has Arizona written all over
I
it.
would have already known.
If you didn't say Arizona, I would have said, I think this story was written about Arizona, because every time, not Arizona, Phoenix.
Phoenix specifically.
This was definitely in the Phoenix area, right? Like,
no other place, because the only other place it could be is, Florida or SoCal, but most of those airports are towered, to be honest.
Well, in the beginning, they said it was Arizona.
But Arizona has way too many untowered airports with way too many people.
Oh my gosh. Every
around.
time we go to Phoenix, it's a freaking zoo. And I nearly don't want to fly myself solo to Phoenix because I need another person there looking for traffic. It's very difficult getting in and out of the Arizona airports with how busy it is.
Yeah, the thing that stinks the most is like Phoenix Approach air traffic control gets rid of you like early. I've gone there many, many times and it's just too busy under the Bravo shelf that they don't want to deal with it. So now you're completely on your own, relying on your own eyeballs, which is really hard to do. I know a lot of people out there think that you should just see, but it's really hard to see airplanes that are going 150 miles an hour in the opposite direction. Boom.
Yeah. And I mean, Cirrus pilot, come on, man. This is why you guys get a bad rap.
I know. Opposite direction, no radio calls, no nothing.
Cutting
and then he
in.
says, get off the runway.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Man.
And I'm sure this student pilot was making all of their calls appropriately, too.
Yeah. I mean, so the story says. I would imagine so. And yeah, that's unfortunate. Stereotypical Cirrus pilot.
I'm trying to be the one that breaks the mold of how we enter the traffic pattern. I do not let any of my students go straight in. The only time we go straight in is when we're doing an approach. Other than that, we are doing a traffic pattern entry.
Yeah, it doesn't add a lot of time.
It's safer.
If it's a really dead airport, there's 0 people there, then whatever. It's not really affecting anyone. But this is clearly a busy airspace and airport. 100% of the time, I will be doing a full traffic pattern to enter here.
It comes back to that tool bag, right? Like, where did you teach me how to fly? At our grass strip. Guess who didn't have radios or electrical? People who flew at our grass strip. So, like, I take that to heart and understand it's not required to talk on the radio. So because it's not required, that's why I find it so important to do traffic pattern entries. Whether it's whatever one you want to pick, I don't care because it's safer. End of rant.
Yeah, for sure. Great story though.
Well written too.
Yeah, and that once leaving, and then of course after being like, man, all these bozos, and then accidentally making the wrong radio call, I'd be punching air. Like, oh damn it.
And who cuts off a jet? How do you even cut off a jet? Like, how do you have no awareness to cut off a jet? What were they even doing?
I think some piston engine pilots don't understand the impact of cutting off a jet because they're like, oh, it's just a jet, it's a stupid jet, I'm just gonna land because we all share the airspace. You really don't understand what you're doing when you're cutting off a jet. It is so much more difficult for a jet to go around and re-enter the pattern than it is for a piston. Don't cut off jets.
Let's just keep it even more simple. People don't understand how much faster they are than you.
Right.
Like the closure rate. I see this argument all the time, like the jet's not established in the pattern. That's not true. You're in the downwind, the jet's on a 5-mile final. You still have another 2 to 3 miles to go. They're going to beat you there.
They're in your pattern.
They're beating you.
Yeah.
Like, it's just pattern. like I experienced this as a controller, like seeing the closure rate of how much faster a jet will be than your little Cherokee or Skyhawk or Cirrus. Even a Cirrus, hopefully they're not flying at a jet speed, but some do.
And then the end of the story, the Cherokee, about 300 feet from them, When you get that close to another airplane in flight and you didn't see them coming, that is the most startling thing that can happen.
And opposite direction, which you're not even looking. It sounds like they're turning crosswind, so your eyeballs should be in front of you or to the left of someone, whatever direction you're going, joining the pattern, not the other way, where they're coming right at you, basically lower than you, which makes no sense as well either. How are they lower than you when you're in the crosswind?
Seriously. I mean, all that to say, Arizona truly is the wild, wild west.
Wild West, baby.
Right?
Well, thank you, Captain Jane Doe. Thank you, Captain John Doe. Hopefully you also got your rating. So please reach back out and let us know if you are a certificated pilot now, because this is exciting. We had 2 solo student stories, and I did not do that on purpose.
No, I love it. That was great. Those were great topics to go over. I love it. So keep submitting your stories. We love to hear them. We love to root for you guys and cheer you guys on in your own pilot journeys. So I think that's about it for today. We'll see you guys next week.
April Fools.
Okay.
Thanks for flying with Captain John Doe. If you have a story to share, visit CaptainJohnDoe.com and stay anonymous. New episodes every Wednesday. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and tell your favorite crew members.